So let's talk about these characters, because I can't move on to the gameplay and talk about the gameplay until we talk about the people who accompany NieR through this game.
That's fine. This is the plot. This is a plot episode. Fuck the gameplay. Let's just keep going. It's fine.
Yeah, let's do that. So let's start with Grimoire Weiss. What do you guys think of Grimoire Weiss?
I love him.
I love him.
Snap. Is there a character we're not going to start out, by the way, before we get into this, without saying I love them?
Yep.
One.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
We'll get to that.
But no, okay. I'm also kind of biased, and I mean, fucking whatever. This is gonna bleed over into like our sound discussion if we even get to that. But I am fully biased, mostly based on the voice actor for Grimoire Weiss, Liam O'Brien, aka Illidan motherfucking Stormrage, aka you are not prepared. Like, oh, as soon as I heard his voice, I was like, oh my God, I know who that is. That's fucking amazing. And much in Mr. O'Brien fashion, his delivery is mwah. It's fantastic.
I think that's the best thing I have to say about Grimoire Weiss is his voice acting is just, it's amazing. It is infectious.
Well, what the fuck else is there? He's a book. I mean, what else are you going to get from him?
I don't really see him as a character really evolving throughout the game. He pretty much stays the same character all throughout. And he's just kind of like he's not really the narrator, but he's the narrator.
I mean, he does come around to just being called Vice by the end.
I guess there's that. And not just being entirely stuck up in the very, very end. That's where you start to see some slight changes.
Yeah. I mean, I also just really appreciate the interactions between him and Kaine. Like his insistence on calling her a hussy is just the best.
I love that he uses that word. Just bring it back into the common lexicon,
Hussy.
please.
No, right?
I love it.
I just love his writing, like the banter that he has between the characters and the way that he speaks and the words that he uses is so foreign to every other character that it really sets him apart. Yeah, voice acting is fantastic. I want to stick my dick between those pages and fuck it. Not really.
Wow. Do you want paper cuts? Because that's how you get paper cuts.
You say shit. Not really. You say not really.
Well,
I don't think it's fine. You don't have to apologize.
Adam's just sitting over here just pondering. Is like, is it possible to fuck a voice?
Well, last time I fucked a paperback, it wasn't that great. So
there you go.
Maybe a hardcover tome like Grimoire Weiss would be better.
Oh, the cleanup would be less.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that.
It's built in. Oh my God.
Why are these pages stick together?
It's like a paper fleshlight.
Oh,
exactly.
Please don't ever put those two words together ever again. Oh, no. But what I was going to say is, for the record, Vice is actually the reason I came around to NieR's voice actor. I'll be honest with you. And the reason for that is the banter and the interactions that the two of them have. They have such a great foil relationship that sort of NieR mostly playing, well, actually on some level, they both play the straight man on some things and they kind of trade off on that. Cause NieR throws in a couple dad jokes every now and again, but no, their interactions are actually what made me come around, because prior to picking up Vice, which granted is pretty early in the game. Like I said earlier, I did not like NieR's voice at all. So
that surprises me. I actually really liked it.
I don't know what it was, man. It's just, I think it was the first set of dialogue that you get through the beginning of the game. Maybe it was just not comparatively the best writing, or maybe it was the way he was delivering his lines. I kind of felt like he was trying too hard, where he was just like, yes, I'm going to do gruff white man voice. And I just wasn't sold on it. But then honestly, I almost feel like it comes along with the evolution of his character, even.
Yeah.
That like his delivery of his lines feels more, well, human.
I would say the worst part of his voice acting for me, and when I didn't really notice it until someone pointed it out, but I did cringe a little bit, was after the area is destroyed and he's trying to get Kaine back up. I think it's after the area is destroyed. I might be off on my timing, but he talks to Kaine and he's like, Kaine, we're friends. Like, kind of like an adult talks to a child who's dating their mother. Like, we're not together, we're just friends. Like, what? Like, no. Like, you're totally trying to bang her, dude. I get it. Like, we all get it. You don't have to, like, do this super cheery Captain Planet shit. Like, it's okay. But that makes more sense when NieR's, like, 16 as opposed to 40.
Yeah.
So maybe that's more of the dialogue choice.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah. That's definitely one of the things where the age difference sort of stands out. And especially considering his character model movement in that scene looks very like Japanese young boy-ish, like kind of overly animated. No, I loved him. The only thing that threw me off about NieR is his busted face.
Oh my God, yes, thank you. I'm not the only one. Dude, what is up with
I don't like it either.
eyebrows or lack thereof, it seems. I don't, man.
They just put it on Kaine in the remaster.
Oh, dude, fuck that. Okay, we're not even talking about the remaster today, but holy shit. Like, I would not have this visceral reaction, right? If somebody had showed me a picture of that and I had not played the original, I'd been like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Looks like an attractive woman character model. Great, I guess. The funny thing too is I was all fucking indignant about this, and Adam might have been the one that sent the photo. I don't know. Maybe it was you.
I think it was me.
I think it was you. You sent the comparison photo, and I stomped over to my wife, and I was just like, "Would you look what they did to Kaine?" And she's like, "What? I'm like, you don't see the difference? Look at that." And she's like, I think she actually, I don't know. I kind of feel like she looks better. And I'm like, you are entitled to be wrong, but you are wrong. Like,
we're all entitled to our wrong opinions.
Exactly. And it's hard for me to really kind of nail it down. But the best that I could do, and the reason that bothered me so much, is because the character model that Kaine has in the original, and this is actually true for a number of the characters as well. I mean, busted face NieR notwithstanding, but it was like she was attractive, but in like this very sort of odd, unusual, unconventional way.
Yeah.
Where she wasn't, what you would expect from like, big ass anime eyes and like a shit ton of like makeup and whatever. And is this not your idealized woman? And she wasn't that, but like in spite of that, almost she was still very much an attractive person. And I found that very endearing, that she seemed much more real.
Yeah.
And the fact that they changed that in the remaster to make her look like generic hot woman just bothered the fuck out of me.
Let's just stick with Kaine then. Let's keep it rolling with her.
Sure.
Go ahead, Adam.
Oh, my 2 cents on that is, and this might be a surprise, but I actually came around to the remaster model of her. I'm used to it now. Mm-hmm. When I saw it as well, it really bothered me because she looked too feminine, and her hair, like that weird haircut, it works for the Xbox 360 or PS3 version because it's kind of blocky. But when you sort of texturize it, when you add a texture to it to make it look like actual hair, it just looks like somebody fucking cut her bangs on a weird angle and she fucked up her own haircut. But the thing I love about the original Kaine model is because it straddles the line between being feminine and masculine, because they didn't just, they didn't just change her face. They changed her shoulders. They changed her waist. They made her look overall more feminine. Whereas in the 360 version, she is like, her shoulders are bigger. She looks like a swimmer or something. And there is a masculine quality to her that you can't quite put your finger on. And then it turns out, of course, that she is a hermaphrodite. So she kind of has a masculine quality to her anyway.
Right.
And it really works for her character in the original game. Whereas in the remaster, it just looks like a girl wearing lingerie.
I almost wonder if like they were intentionally trying to downplay like that aspect, or if it was just kind of like an oversight in favor of making her look prettier. I wonder about that.
I don't know.
It probably is. It might be the fact that the people bringing it over may have just not even really realized it, because sometimes developers, they may not know a lot about the plot, and that's just so much. That's something that could be completely overlooked if you play the original. It's not something that it's explicitly talked about, which is something I absolutely adore about the game in and of itself. From just kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to use big woke words here, but like a progressive mindset, you know what I'm saying? is here you have a hermaphrodite or intersex for you Orwellians out there character that isn't really addressed as such. It's just addressed that this is a person, this is a human being, and it goes back to what an interview with Yoko Taro it was addressed. It, like, is Kaine hermaphrodite? And he's like, yeah. And it's like, well, why didn't you make that a big deal? And he's like, because these people exist.
Yeah.
Why should I make a big deal about people who exist? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
This is kind of a mini rant incoming, by the way. As a diverse person myself.
Is that the new PC term for that?
I don't fucking know. I'm a gay.
We can make it a thing.
I could go on another rant about how much I hate like diversity terms and the acronyms and how many fucking letters there are, but I won't. So anyway, as a gay man now, I like the fact that they don't draw too much attention to it, because it really irks me in certain games. And I'm going against the grain with this because I know a lot of LGBTQ BBQ W2F people really like having recognition and waving their flag and saying, yay, look, representation. But to me, the best representation is characters who their sexuality or their diverseness isn't made a big deal out of. Like you said, Yoko Taro said, these people exist. You wouldn't have any idea if what they are or what they aren't, because by all aspects, you just look at them and you just see a person. And I love that. Whereas like games in like Mass Effect or whatever, it's like, look, you can be gay now. You can be gay. Look at us. We're gay. Woo! And I'm like, that's really annoying. Stop that. Like, I just want to be treated like every other person rather than making a big deal about what I am or what I am not, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. No, 100%. And that's the thing, right? Is like, I feel like a lot of those, and it's not just games. I mean, it's really anything, but
it's everything nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of take that as an opportunity to do this kind of like virtue signaling bullshit of just like they're turning it into like a marketing tactic, which is just really gross to me.
Yeah, it's like, let's see how many points we can get for being diverse. I'm like, oh, it's not exactly about that.
Yeah. It's like, have we fulfilled our corporate diversity quota with this yet? Good. Okay, great.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But anyway, Kaine as a character, fucking loved her because she is vulgar as hell. And it's a great contrast between this like really feminine-ish looking attire that she's got on, which is super revealing. And you would expect in any other game she would be like the sultry femme fatale kind of character dressed like that. But instead, she's just crass and swears like a sailor and is super violent and angry. So it's just this great contrast.
I love that. I also love that they purposefully make a point of highlighting like the absurdity of her outfit.
Yeah.
because that's the thing is like a lot of games would play that one 100% straight because they're just like, yeah, I mean, she's a hot chick, so clearly she needs to be in lingerie, right? Because that's what you gamer boys want.
Yeah.
But this one, it was like, I loved it when Vice like first pointed it out and just asked her like, what the fuck is up with these clothes? And then at some point, like, I think it was the wedding. That's what it was. The wedding in Facade, where he just asks her, he has that line where he's just like something to the effect of just like, well, I mean, you know, if you're going to attend the wedding, are you going to at least find like, you know, a nice set of lingerie, something different, perhaps. It's so good. And I'm glad that they like were very kind of self-aware about that choice too.
Yeah.
I also love the fact that the love story that they tell between her and NieR is somewhat atypical. Mm-hmm. And that's mostly because she's dealing with the demon that she has, that she has to be evil to keep this thing from fully possessing her. But it's an atypical love story, whereas most, especially JRPGs, especially, you know, from Square Enix or just any other source for that matter, especially when it has this anime look, want to go straight up cringy with it and be like, I love you too. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself if I lose you. And you don't see that between NieR and Kaine ever. The closest you get to it is near the end where Emil sacrifices himself. And then you see a scene that's close to that, and it results in heart. I know. It results in Kaine beating the shit out of NieR again in order to like kind of deny this humanity that she knows that she's manifesting within herself. And that just, it makes her a complex character. It makes the relationship that she has with NieR extremely complex. And I think that's why, in my opinion, she's my favorite character throughout the entire game. Hands down. She's my favorite.
Yeah, understandable. My favorite is Emil, of course.
Second.
Are we ready to move on to Emil? Have we said enough about Kaine?
I think the one last thing I'll throw in about Kaine, and it's just sort of tangentially related, but can I just say, am I the only one that out of all of the excellent voice acting that was put into this game, Tyran
God, yes,
is terrible.
Yeah, he's bad.
It's like jarringly bad. It's like somebody just trying to be like, what would I sound like if I was just like a bad dude? And oh man, it threw me off so much too. I mean, the other part of it could be because in my head canon, I wanted him to have like this really sweet like New Jersey accent, and that just didn't come through. But anyway, moving on.
Wait, one more thing about Kaine.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to talk about the remaster, but I just got to throw this in there real quick. Not only is the character model different, but the performance of Laura Bailey in the remaster is slightly different to what it was in the original, and I definitely prefer her voice in the original over the remaster, because you can tell.
I've heard some of the samples, and I prefer the original as well.
Yeah, there's like a significant amount of time that's passed since then, and her voice has deepened and changed, and I just didn't feel her performance in the remaster nearly as much as I did in the original, so that's a bit of a shame. But she does a great job in the OG one.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yep.
Right, so Emil.
Best boy, 10 out of 10, 100%. I will fucking die for him. Don't at me.
Agreed.
I liked him. I'm not going to say best boy. I'm not going to put him above Vivi. That's never happening.
That's a tough
I
call,
will.
But
okay, you can do that. He's certainly better than in Automata. I'll give it that. Even though he was great in Automata, Emil's great. His innocence really shines through. His naivete and optimism is always kind of there. He's a great plot character. I just, you know what? I didn't find him as complex as Kaine, and I just didn't gravitate towards him all that much. As great of a character as I consider him to be, I just thought he was just relatively, in a sense, kind of basic. Great attitude and demeanor, though, but not a very complicated character.
I think his backstory and his past trauma is slightly harder to relate to than Kaine's, because, I mean, how many of us have been in weapon programs where we're magically altered to be a weapon?
My friend Logan has.
Well, yeah, but I'm sure he would get a meal. But as like broad strokes is slightly harder to relate to. But I just love like his innocence and because when he's introduced, he's human, and he actually is like legitimately human. He's not a replicant. And he's wearing this blindfold because he can't even look at people without turning them to stone. So I just love this, like he's lacked connection between other people for so long. And he finally meets these people that he can hang out with and then form a bond with. And I love that. And I equally loved when his body is taken away from him and he's given this hideous, like skeletal form, and the sort of trauma that puts on him as well. It just makes me root for him, and I love him. I would get a tattoo of him if he wasn't actually physically disturbing, and it would negatively affect my sex life.
Just put it on your shoulder.
Even then, if I'm taking it from behind, they'll just see his face staring back at him, and I don't know about that.
That's true. I feel like that is a mood killer.
Yeah. I mean, as much as I love the design, and I love the fact that Yoko Taro wears Emil's head as a way to conceal his own identity.
Yes.
It's not a pleasant image that you would look at and go, oh, how cute. It's kind of disturbing.
That's fair. And so I think for me, part of the reason that I feel like I gravitated to Emil so much is that in a way, I kind of threw NieR as like my avatar vessel. I kind of almost felt like this fatherly thing going on. Okay, Emil triggers some father instincts in me that I wasn't aware that I had.
Aw.
Like, no, for real. And so that's also why I'm so glad that I played this version with Papa NieR, because I think the dynamic would have been super different if it was the other one, and for an entirely other different reason that we will probably get to in a moment. But the way that this one was presented, that's the vibe that I got from it. And so like that coupled with his just like relentless like optimism, and to both of your points, his naivety, like it's just I just want to hug him. I just want to hug the kid. That's it. Like, and man, when you brought up the thing about he does the self-sacrifice to like save them, that whole sequence, like
heart-wrenching.
That fucking broke me, man. Oh my God.
Me too.
Where he's just like he's so optimistic that he's saving everything. He's trying to stay positive, and then he says, "I don't want to die," and it's just fuck.
That whole scene is like 3 gut punches in a row for me, and the tears start with Deviler and they end with Emil, and by that time I am dehydrated.
Yep. I'm trying to think. I think that was the first real thing that really just totally got me. Like, of course, the other things that happened maybe like leading up to it or whatever, it's like, you know, that's definitely one thing, but that was the big one. And then after that, it's just like it's just one thing after another, man. Ugh.
I have a slight confession.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm like feeling sad but I can't cry, I watch that scene on YouTube just to get the tears out. Like,
it works.
It works. Yeah.
Then I do it and then it's done with, and I'm like, okay, I feel much better now. I've got my cry out and I'm good to go on living and succeeding. Thanks, Emil.
So the thing you wanted to reveal is that about, because we talked about Kane being hermaphrodite.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to talk about Emil being gay, even though it's just like one sentence in the Japanese version?
Yeah.
Or I don't know if it's in the remake or remaster, I should say. Okay, so they brought it into that, right?
Oh, yeah.
So they took it out of the North American version, the Western version, completely. It's this line in the right before the facade wedding where it alludes to the fact that Emil wants to marry and have a relationship with NieR moving forward. Is that where you? So Shane, you said you wanted to discuss that really quickly. I'll let you get to it, and of course, Adam, you can have your perspective on that.
Cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, honestly, I think the two of you will have more to say as far as elaborating on that piece, because I didn't witness that part because I played the original Western version. So that whole dynamic was completely devoid from my playthrough, but I found it interesting that was purposefully taken out, because it seems like in the grand scheme of things, maybe it's not huge, but to me, I feel like that's a fairly significant aspect of a character that you kind of just wholesale ripped out, even if it is just one line in a particular scene. Although it's interesting because I'm wondering, and Adam, you can probably help me with this, where that line originally was supposed to be, because I have a sense of where I think it was, possibly when Emil was talking to NieR about like what his first wedding was like. Was it somewhere around that?
That's exactly it.
Okay. Yeah, I had a feeling.
Yeah, I think so. The explanation that I saw was that because Papa NieR is older, the context of the conversation related about a wedding is going to be put onto his previous wife. So, and in that context, it doesn't really allow Emil an opportunity to express that in any way.
Mm-hmm.
But with the younger brother, their conversation is about potentially finding somebody to marry in the future. So once they talk about that, NieR walks out of the room, and Emil's line is something along the lines of, God, it's something like NieR asks him about finding the right bride someday, and he says like, no. And then I think the context is NieR thinks he's talking about it because of his body or something like that. And Emil is like, no, I didn't mean it that way. I didn't want a bride. No, actually, I think he says he wants to be the bride, something like that.
Something that's what I've heard as well too. Yes.
Yeah. So it's like 2 seconds, and then it kind of alludes to him having this crush on brother NieR. So I like that. And to further to your point, when I played this originally, I had no idea that he was supposed to be gay either, because I didn't pick up on that whatsoever. And it wasn't until I did a bit of background reading and digging into it that that actually came across. I was like, that's nice. So I wasn't really too bothered that they didn't have it in the Papa NieR version, but I'm glad that they brought it back for the replicant version just to change it up a little bit.
Yeah, and I feel like it probably makes sense with the older NieR, because that is such a significant difference in age for the two of them. And for what it's worth, it also gave us the great line, although I don't know if that was somehow worked into the other version as well. Maybe it was, but the line that Emil has about the wedding having like bears on unicycles.
I think he does say that actually.
That one is one of my favorites, because it's like quintessential Emil, that like he'll take something like that and just start going off. It tells you how young he really still is, that he's just like, you had a wedding? Well, how was it? Was it awesome? Was there like singing and dancing and bears on unicycles? And NieR's like, all right, fucking calm down. It's okay.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm glad it's not like a crush between a mentally 12-year-old boy and a 40-year-old man.
Right.
Which, they're not afraid to do, because they do that with the Facade wedding itself, where she's like 7 and then she's 12 and she's getting married to the prince who's like 16. It's fine. It's kind of a problem.
That one is maybe a little vague-ish. I will say that the one line that Vice throws out there about how she's grown up into a fine example of a woman, I was like, has she though?
No.
She's suspiciously tall though, so maybe she's just taking like steroids or something.
She's just
it's that
real
replicant blood.
Jacked underneath that outfit they got.
All that talking with her hands is giving her massive biceps.
Yeah. Or she's doing other things we don't want to mention here with the prince, and
No, damn it.
She's good with her hands.
She's pure.
Sure.
Apparently she has a really fucked up face underneath that, by the way.
What is that? Is that some Yoko Taro thing that
it's something to do with her backstory, I think, how she has like some kind of physical disfigurement. So it goes I think it's explained in like one of those short story type of text things. It's makes the prince's love of her more appealing or something, because he like forgives her for looking ugly. That's a weird way to say it, but like he sees past.
Good thing that the rules are to wear a mask. You're breaking the rules. Put this back on. Okay, we're good.
I think the prince does say, now that I'm thinking about it, he did say something about like the fact that she was an outsider and was treated unfairly and something to that effect. I think it was when they were standing by her grave.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Anyway, can we talk about my other favorite characters now?
Yes.
Oh shit, let's keep going. Let's do this.
Deviler and Popola, probably pretty close to being my favorites, below Emil.
Okay.
And that's because the fucking fight that you have with them is heart-wrenching and absolutely destroys me, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, that's a pretty emotional boss fight. I will give it that.
And I love them singing.
Oh,
yes,
dude. I put that in our notes somewhere in here, that I just, when you have that side quest to kind of bring them back together to sing in the tavern or whatever, when you get them both in there and you walk in and they just start singing, like I just set my controller down and I just sat there and just listened to it for like a good solid 5 minutes or so. It was so well done.
Mine was like half an hour. I walked in there, left it playing, and then I went and I washed the dishes.
Nice.
I did think their battle with them was pretty emotional. I think they're well-developed characters, of course. I think almost every character in this game, for the most part, is well-developed. I just didn't have the same reaction you did. Sorry. Even when I saw them in Automata again, when I was talking with Riku about it, and he's like, don't you see who's in there? I'm like, yeah. It's like, why aren't you freaking out? I'm like, I guess because they're there. Like, do you want me to freak out? I don't know what you're expecting. Like, I don't know. They just didn't touch my buttons. Like, they were just kind of plot devices to me. Even though they were well-developed characters, I just didn't really see them as anything other than that, as a means to an end.
I just love that they're like, well, Popola is kind of like your quest giver in the main plot all through the first 75% of the game. So I loved that she is your go-to person, and she kind of fulfills that role that you would find in every other RPG of just like the sort of generic plot quest giver type of thing. And then you find out that there is so much more to both of them, and that they've lived. Well, they're not even technically alive. They're androids, and they've been alive since before it all began, and they've been watching over everybody. And it just kind of like adds this other depth to them that I wasn't expecting. And then they betray you in a sense. So they're the ones that have planned from the beginning for you to find all these pieces to make your way to the Shadow Lord's castle. And what they expect is that you will be beaten and the Shadow Lord will be able to reclaim NieR as his vessel again. But come to find out that you're just surprisingly way too strong.
Yeah, you have a Phoenix Spear.
Yeah. Phoenix Spear saved your ass. But yeah, I love that. The betrayal. And then like when one of them dies, the other one is like spent 1,300 years with her, and to have a loss of life of like a companion that you've been with for so long is just heart-wrenching. And the fact that they're androids and feel emotions, which by the way carries over into Automata is as a theme, which shouldn't be, that's not a spoiler, that's like expected.
Right.
But yeah, like these two machines crying even though they're not supposed to have souls, that's just like, tears me up inside.
It also makes me wonder, right? Because I don't know why I didn't think about this before, but you kind of have to wonder if this is what nth time it is that they've like gone through this same cycle with some version of NieR over the last 1,300 years, right?
They actually hinted that, because they say that they were planning on leaving that for at least another generation, but for whatever reason, the replicant sentience was progressing too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It's a line of dialogue somewhere. I can't remember exactly where it is, but they definitely mentioned that it's just happened too soon.
Right.
Weird. It's like NieR's 9S.
Yeah.
This is a reference I don't get.
I'll just agree.
Sure.
That's all we can really say.
Yeah.
Because you haven't played it yet. Go listen to our NieR Automata episode, please. That Shane has probably not listened to.
No, I have not for what should be obvious reasons.
Yeah. And don't.
Let's see. So anything else that we want to touch on as far as characters go? I will say, fuck that old fisherman. God damn it.
He dies.
With all those fishing. Everybody dies, man. What? Like literally everyone. And that's the thing, is like the conclusion of most of the quests is somebody dying, most likely.
Sure.
Yeah.
The lighthouse one was really nice too.
Yeah.
I like that quest.
That one. Yeah, I liked that.
It was okay.
It was the first thing. It was the first instance that showed me that this game was going to be deeper than I had any anticipation for it to be. Because that's really early in the game.
I remember you saying that in the Automata episode, and truth be told, I'd forgotten what her storyline was until I replayed it. And then when I did replay it, I'm like, oh, is that it? Oh, never mind.
Wow.
It's like, whatever. Next.
Yeah, it's like in the grand scheme of things, it's whatever. It's kind of a tosser, but it made me realize, okay, this is the angle this game is going to go for with me.
Yeah.
It's going to try and touch on my emotions. It's going to try and pull a Lost Odyssey. It's way more than Lost Odyssey. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's a RPG from Mistwalker, Hironobu Sakaguchi for the Xbox 360. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. But it does, Lost Odyssey does similar kind of things.
That was probably one of the first points that I purposefully saved my game just so I could see the two different outcomes.
Oh, between telling her the truth and lying to her?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Slightly off topic, slight tangent, but my favorite side quest, since we're talking about those, is the one where you need to track down somebody's former lover, and then you go through all these towns speaking to his other sex partners or whatever. And then this is like in the second half of the game. And then you eventually find out that in the junk heap, the guy, so the two brothers, the guy their mother ran away with was this guy that you're tracking down like 5 years later. And I was like, this fucking man-whore has been sleeping around the whole country. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
And tied together too with the mother dying too.
Yeah.
Say also special shout out to the side quest of the dude that was like on the little cliff area next to the lighthouse, who has no idea that the chick he is trying to get with does not give a single shit about him. And he just buys like the most ridiculously expensive garbage to try to win her affection, and just it does not work. And he has no clue.
That's the quest I missed.
It was a pretty good one. Vice was just basically saying something like, at the end of it, he was just like, is this what human romance is or something? He's like, I don't get it. And NieR's just like, yeah, I don't either. I don't know what the fuck is going on.
That quest inspired me to go out and find a sugar daddy.
Nice. There you go.
Didn't work though. I'm too old for that.
All right, speaking of finding sugar daddies, this has no attachment to gameplay, but let's move on to it.
Great.
All right.
I probably could have tied that together. So, but I didn't. I'll start out with the gameplay here. It's there. I mean, it's not horrible. It's there.
Yeah.
Like it's playable. It's definitely a playable game. And then you get into the second. So let's just like was mentioned in the brief history. It's kind of like God of War. You start out with a short sword and it's just very combo centric. You can cast spells with Grimoire Vice that are extremely overpowered. They have different functions and whatever, but eventually you're going to find a spell that's going to be good for you. And I stayed with pretty much the same spell once I found something I liked and didn't really deviate.
Magic Fist, baby.
That's what I did. Magic Fist and the spears.
Yep.
And those are the only two spells I ever used. Yeah, that's it. And then you get to the halfway point, and then they're like, now you can use spears and two-handed swords. And you're like, two-handed swords are garbage. And I can work with the spears because they're ridiculously OP, but nothing really controls as well as the short swords. That's kind of the long and the short of the gameplay. It's just, it's rough around the edges, but it's not so rough that it's broken.
And that's the thing is like, it's not bad really by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that I think when sized up against something like the plot of this game, it's just like painfully mediocre. And that's really the best thing I can say about it, because I mean, at the end of the day, without all of the plot devices that really make this game work, you're really just looking at a fairly generic third person action game. And that's fine. The thing that bothers me the most, though, is kind of what you're alluding to. And that is the combat and weapon systems are woefully unbalanced to like a confusing degree. And it's not even just that certain weapon types are just objectively better than others. And in case you didn't catch it, spears are fucking OP and you never need to use anything else, like pretty much ever. There might be some edge cases that you could make for one-handed swords for like breaking defenses on single targets, but outside of that, you really don't ever need them ever. And so there's that, which kind of throws out 2/3 of the weapons that you would otherwise obtain in the game. It makes them pointless, really. And then kind of dovetailing off of that, the other problem I have is that there's no rhyme or reason to the strength or relative usefulness of the weapons that you obtain in the order in which you obtain them. And that bothered me greatly, that for some reason you can just straight up go to a vendor in Facade and purchase the Phoenix Spear immediately after the beginning of, your second playthrough, which is, I am just going to say objectively the best weapon in the game. And then everything else after that, like you still get a steady stream of, weapons either as rewards for quests or purchasing them from vendors or finding them or what have you. It completely removes any of that sort of like, sense of accomplishment or, joy that you get from like finding a new sweet piece of loot, because some of them have pretty awesome looking, models for the weapons. And you think like, oh yeah, this one's going to be badass. And then statistically, they are all just straight up worse than things you had before. And this isn't even a second half of the game problem. This also happens in the first half, because as soon as you are able to purchase the Beast Bane, pretty much anything else is pointless for the entire first half of the game. And it's perplexing to me that like there was so much care and thought put into one aspect, and then the entire mechanism around the itemization in the game seems so like oddly fundamentally flawed.
Very much so.
Yeah, I never thought of it from that perspective, because I'd played a bit of Drakengard as well, where collecting weapons is just part of unlocking the hidden story endings.
Mm-hmm.
But you have a really good point about how, like in regular RPGs, if you were to get a new weapon, it would just statistically be better. So you would be constantly upgrading. Whereas this one, you find weapons that are trash towards the end of the game and have absolutely no use. And I was kind of thinking about it while I was playing the remaster, because I have used the Phoenix Spear a lot since it is so overpowered, and you kind of have to get through the bosses quickly and get through just general enemies quickly. But once you hit a certain point in your second playthrough, once you've collected like so many materials and you've farmed them throughout your playthrough, and you can actually start upgrading other weapons, you might be tempted to experiment more then. And that's what I'm trying to do, is try out other weapons that I wouldn't really give a chance to. But unfortunately, they're just not that strong compared to the Phoenix Spear. And it doesn't help that you can almost fully upgrade that completely from a very early point. But, on the magic stuff though, I 100% was using the Dark Lances as my main weapon, my main spell, first time I played the game. And I didn't deviate from that at all. So this other time around, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try a few other abilities and see if like how it works. And they do change up the way you play. Like there's this really cool one where you sort of like cast a big sphere around where you are, and any enemy trapped within that sphere, you attack them with like a sort of shadow clone type of thing. So that one's really cool. But yeah, I mean, I experimented with other ones. I never really used the Dark Fist.
Oh, that one is so useful, dude. It interrupts bosses. It's so good.
The Lancers do that too.
I mean, they do, but I felt like for consistency, like maybe not necessarily the straight up story bosses, but like the bigger enemies, like mini bosses, I guess, if you will, you could just consistently just time the punches from that thing to just keep them in like a stun lock the entire time.
And they're almost auto aim. It doesn't take much thought in order to hit things with it.
Yeah.
My general gameplay style for fights was to just get in there, wail on them with the sword while charging up my Dark Lances, and then dodge out and then just start firing them off and then get back in there to start melee attacking. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the Dark Lances were definitely my boss killer, like 100%. That worked pretty much every time.
I think without the magic though, this would be a straight up, very bland hack and slash game with no depth to it whatsoever as far as battle system. Like if you didn't have the shooting stuff, it would just be boring.
And I think like you look at the reviews, you look at the game reviewers, and if they had just played through this game once and didn't play it from the halfway point again to play it a second time, which I'm starting to think that's what they did when they played through this game. Like, I beat it, I'm going to write a review for it. I'd probably give it a fucking 6 out of 10 too. Because it's not that the gameplay is bad, it's just bland. There's not much to it. Even when it tries to put you in situational things to do, like when it tries to implement bullet hell stuff, it feels like it's very lazily implemented, or when it has a 2D kind of map to it where you're jumping from platform to platform, it feels very sloppy.
I actually really like that though.
Yeah, but it doesn't feel like very well thought out and refined and very well delivered. What I think it was, and reading the notes, I can tell I think you guys agree, where I think it was very well refined and very well delivered was in the text adventure segments, which is not something you're expecting out of a 2010 RPG.
No, man, that in all of the things that caught me off guard about this game, that was probably the one I was least expecting, where you just go, the entire point of that forest area is just to be one giant text adventure. And I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. And honestly, it also puts a really great spotlight on just how good the writing actually is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was all right.
All right.
No, I mean, it was good. I remember paying particular attention to it the very first time I played it. And there are 2 times that you visit that town where the text adventure stuff happens. And the first time I was sitting there with my coffee, just tapping through, reading everything. But the second time around, I sort of already knew what was going on. So it's just like, skip this. It's taking far too long. So,
okay, to be fair, I will actually give you that one because I did the same thing. And also I got some of the answers wrong, and then you have to start it all over again. And I was just sitting there like angrily smashing the button to get through it.
Yes.
Yeah. That was as soon as that one came up, especially the one where you have to navigate the castle. I straight away Googled the answers because I'm like, I don't want to have to replay this.
I like that part. You're right. I wouldn't want to do it again.
Yeah.
But I did like it.
I love that they just change it up.
Yeah. Any comments about the word system?
Oh, boring, trashy, worthless way to upgrade your stats, and I hated it.
It's pretty pointless, I think, too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not going to be that harsh on it, but I will say that it was largely pointless in almost the same way as the vast majority of the weapons, in that, like, I guess it's kind of neat or novel, but tying some of your upgrade choices to very rare, completely random drops kind of sucks. And also, I never found myself using more than like, maybe 3 different words. And I was basically just swapping between whether I wanted to do straight up more damage or I wanted better item drops. That was pretty much the only thing I did. Like, all of the other ones were completely pointless.
I'm in complete agreement with you.
Yeah, I just auto set them, left them as they were, and it didn't really encourage me to experiment with them at all. And I never noticed the actual words having any sort of change or impact on the way that the game was playing. So I largely ignored it, and it kind of just could have been taken out. Didn't even really need to be there.
Yeah. I think it would have been cooler. And again, this is the same sort of commentary I have about the entire item system in this game, is that it would have been a lot more intriguing if they had, I think, implemented it a little bit better. Because, yeah, I mean, and for the record, I mean, there is a noticeable impact on some things, like using the item drop rate one. Like when you get the 30% item drop rate, like that does help, especially when you end up trying to grind for upgrade materials, which I ended up doing, which is probably a bad choice. But outside of that, yeah, like damage or item drop chance, like the rest of them were just like, oh, neat. I got another word, I guess. So my completion percentage went up a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think the next couple topics we're going to be able to get through rather quickly, probably for different reasons.
Also, fuck fishing.
Yeah, fuck fishing. Fishing's garbage.
I just want to put that into the gameplay section.
And gardening.
I mean, what? And oh yeah. Why don't we talk about gardening? Gardening is bullshit because it runs on a real-time clock. Fuck your fucking farming. Fuck your fishing. Once you learn how to fish, it's not that bad. But until you learn how to fish, fuck fishing.
Yeah, because the instructions in the game are wrong. They're straight up wrong.
It's terrible. Fishing is so bad.
No, but the gardening thing, though, man. Oh, man. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but just suffice to say, this is probably one of the only games that I have ever had to, like, just do a thing and then purposefully not play for, 36 hours so that I could go back and check to see if this, like, rare flower hybrid happened, which, for the record, is an actual side quest. And if you don't get that, you will not get 100% quest completion, which bothers the shit out of me. But
which means it's not required.
But there's no reasonable way that any person would know, like, I have to crossbreed this kind of flower and this kind of flower in this exact pattern in order to get this other seed. And then I have to take that seed and crossbreed it with this one to eventually get a white moonflower. Like, what the fuck? I was so irritated by that.
Yoko Taro likes flowers.
I mean, you know what? I'm real happy for him. That's great. He seems like a real sensitive guy, and that's awesome. But also, fuck the whole gardening thing, because I am that kind of person that, like, if I'm one quest away from getting 100% quest completion, I am going to stubbornly try to grow a dumbass flower for like 2 weeks, which is what I did.
Yeah, that's the only thing holding me back from 100% completion is those fucking flowers. God damn it.
It's not fun, in case you didn't catch that. But
I got a Lunar too.
Anyway, Chris, take us to the next topic before I keep griping about horticulture.
Just more stuff to gripe about, and that's
Great.
How it looks graphically, which I don't know if we're going to gripe about it or not. What do you think, Adam?
I think that they were criticized back in the day in 2010 because around that time, so many other better looking games were coming out. I don't think the graphics are bad. I just think comparatively to what was out at that time, reviewers were looking at it and comparing it to like Red Dead Redemption and Mass Effect 2 and stuff. And obviously it doesn't stack up to that. But in their own way, they're serviceable and it works. So it's not like it's an ugly game. It's intentionally styled to be kind of brown and drab, but there's a reason for it. And I think for the most part.
Except for NieR's face.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's busted.
Other than the busted face, I think the other part where it stands out really well is cutscenes for like Kaine and Emil. So those look relatively pretty good and are directed pretty good. So I'm happy with those. I think it just got an unfair rap.
You know, a lot of people, when they say this looks drab and gray, I can understand there are sections of this game that definitely do fit that description, but it's not the entirety of it. It's certainly not the entirety of it. You go to Seafront and you can look out on the ocean. There's Seafront itself is a very colorful town. And you see like a bridge that's been destroyed and you see manatees rolling around on the sand. I don't know if this is natural to these kind of manatees or not, because no one really seems concerned about them. But like the environments are very well developed. They're average. I'll say this, like in terms of graphical fidelity, they're average. They're what you expect probably from a low tier developer, not a AAA developer like Square Enix for sure. It looks almost like a borderline indie project. But that being said, it doesn't look horrific. I also like some of the graphical designs, like when you go into Emil's mansion and it goes black and white, almost like it's trying to be a Resident Evil type horror noir, whatever you want to describe it as. It looks good. It's interesting. It's intriguing. It's trying to do something, I think, within the confines of the budget they were given to work with. So am I going to tell you that the graphics here are fantastic? No, they're average, but I think they did the best what they could with them. There's a lot there, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably just echo most of the things that you guys have already said. I will say there's one thing that actually really bothered me, and it was most prevalent in Seafront, which was the egregious overuse of bloom. Holy shit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. Every time you walk through a tunnel, you just get blinded. I'm like, why?
Michael Bay.
Like, I know you guys are going for realism here because, you know, the sun and your eyes adjusting to the dark. And that's like real neat that you thought of that. But also functionally, it's awful.
But it's real.
But outside of that, though, you know what? I'm not going to say much about the graphics, but from a visual presentation, one thing I do want to note that I just personally really, really appreciated was the creative use of camera angles. And I know that Chris kind of like shit on that a little bit with the side scrolly jumping platform thing. But I actually thought it was very interesting, and it was it was refreshing too, that like, you know, anytime you went inside of like your house or like an interior building like that, it would swing over to like this side view, or just like the use of the camera was very intentional. One thing that stood out to me was when you first got to the Lost Shrine, there were 2 points on your sort of entry path, where the first one you kind of round this bend and you're on a cliff overlooking this giant chasm that the shrine is sort of situated in the middle of, and you get this really great like pullback pan shot of it as you are still running around the path. And then once you get down to the bridge that leads to it, it also starts to very purposefully pull the camera way far out from you, so that as you are running towards the door, you get smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's just one example. And I just wanted to point that out because I think that is something, you know, to be praised, because a lot of games, and hell, even a lot of movies don't always, you know, do that.
I agree.
And also the research facility lab thing underneath Emil's mansion turns into a straight up isometric, almost like double
Diablo
twin stick shooter type of thing, which is fucking cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was the first thing I thought of too. As soon as I got down there, I was like, oh, okay, it's Diablo 2. Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, the game really likes to reference other gameplay styles. That's very evident. And I thought that was very unique. And they, like you said, Shane, they mostly do it just through camera angles. They don't really change anything up, with the exception of the text adventure. But they don't really change anything up other than camera angles, and they almost make it feel like completely different gameplay styles. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome.
So what do you guys think about how the music and the sound was delivered? I can see this going on for longer than we want it to, or being extremely short, but I think it would be for the same reason. Adam, I'll let you take this one first.
Well, we sort of already talked about a lot of the voice acting anyway in the character section, so I won't harp on that too much. I will say, though, the replicant version of some of the voices, like I mentioned earlier, don't quite stack up to the original, like Popola in particular. When she screams after Devila dies, it hits you really hard in the original, not so much in replicant. But musically, it's fucking awesome. Like, it's the best music ever. Not really, but like it's way up there. And like soundtracks for games, NieR is like peak. It's up there with NieR Automata. It's up there with Final Fantasies. I just love the way that like the music has these vocals in them as well, in this made up language. Yeah, I don't even know really what to say about it other than it's fantastic music.
Yeah, I listen to this game pretty regularly outside of the gameplay space. I just turn on YouTube and I listen to the music while I'm driving. This music is utterly outstanding. The only negative thing I would have to say about the music is that you hear the field music right outside the village, I think, a little too often, making it kind of repetitive. Especially like the Junk Heap dungeon. That song isn't the best, but you spend a lot of time in there. So it can kind of drone on and stay with you longer than it necessarily needs to be. But that being said, the entire OST is just mind-blowingly beautiful. And Amy Evan kills it with her voice. It's just stunning.
Yeah, the music in this game is just, it's a mood, man. Like 100%. It's perfect for the atmosphere that they were trying to achieve, I think, with this game overall. And even the track in the Northern Plains, like you were talking about, that you hear like a billion times as you're kind of traversing these areas. I mean, I still definitely dug that one. And even though it feels a bit more like adventure-y almost, kind of with like the introduction of the drums and like all that stuff, it still has just this twinge of melancholy, and that runs through pretty much everything in the game. I mean, OST or otherwise. And it's funny that you point out the Junk Heap, because I actually really dug that one. Like the fact that it kind of incorporated these very industrial sounds into the song, I thought was fantastic. So that was actually, honestly, that was probably one of my favorites.
It's not that I don't like it. It's just it wears out its welcome.
Yeah.
Depends how long you spend farming there.
Yes.
True. Yeah. And I did spend quite a bit of time in there. But yeah, man, not too much else to say. It's amazing.
And voice acting, like we said, is fantastic as well.
I just want to add, I love as well some of the choices that they made with the way that music plays, like specifically in NieR's village. When you walk close to Devila, who's sitting on the fountain and she's singing along to the background music, her voice will chime in as you get closer and then disappear as you get further away. Mm-hmm. So that's just really fucking cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I think we're ready to wrap this one up, everybody. Wow, this has been a big episode. I didn't think we were going to take this long, but we spent a lot of time on the plot, and I think rightfully so. You have to talk about that, and this is a really special game. Speaking of that, the ultimate question is, I think this is pretty fucking obvious. Does this game hold up today? Shane, I'll let you start off.
Yes. What? Yes. Go. Stop. We're at the end of the episode. Stop listening to this and go play the fucking game if you haven't played it yet. Like, there's no reason. And the fact that I purposefully adjusted our brief history script to say that this game was criminally overlooked, because it was. And like, I feel personally like offended that I was not aware of this game for so long, because having played it, it is, I mean, people throw all around superlatives a lot, right? To the point where you end up getting pretty desensitized by it. But this game is an experience. It's something that if you're, I mean, a self-identified gamer, or if you just have any passing interest in games, or even just really well told stories, you are doing yourself a disservice by not experiencing this game. And I am glad that it sort of, posthumously kind of got the attention that I think it originally deserved, thanks to, you know, the sequel being so popular, or pseudo sequel, I guess, depends on how you look at it. And so yeah, yes, 100%. Like if you've played it, you know. If you haven't played it, then you should.
All right, I'll go next and I'll let Adam close it out. Yeah, this holds up. It absolutely holds up. It has a remaster, and you can play that. There's probably a lot of reasons you should play the remaster as opposed to the original. But does the original hold up? Oh, fucking absolutely. And like Shane said, the fact that this game got so slammed when it came out is almost inexcusable. And I do think, like I alluded to in the gameplay section earlier, that a lot of these reviewers played through it, got to the initial ending, and assumed New Game Plus was going to be you just play through the game again. And that was going to be that. So they wrote the review as they saw it after the initial ending. And I know I'm making a lot of assumptions here. I have no idea what they did. But that could be the only reason it got the scores it got. Because if you're someone who likes to proclaim from the mountains on high that games are art and you need to view them as such, and you enjoy good stories in games, then this is the game you need to play. And you need to play it, whether it's the original or the remaster. You need to go out there and you need to enjoy it. Yeah, go and play it. And this is especially baffling because, again, another game I mentioned earlier with Spec Ops: The Line, a game that's very heavily involved in the plot, or Shadow of the Colossus. These were two games that were heavily lauded for having such amazing story behind their gameplay, and especially Spec Ops: The Line not having a great gameplay element to it, but more so because of the story element. Yeah, it's shocking this game didn't get its due when it came out. So go back, play it if you can. If you can't, get the remaster. It just came out. There's no excuse why you should be avoiding it. How about you, Adam?
Well, originally in the notes I said no, but I've just changed it to update it because I've changed my mind. I think yes and no. It does hold up, but I think the remaster is probably the better way to play it, especially if you are more accustomed to more modern games, or if you are coming to this game off of the back of NieR Automata, because the combat has been upgraded and plays a lot better. So I think like it's virtually exactly the same, except the fact that Papa NieR is replaced with Brother NieR, which is, I mean, if you've played the original, it's a new way to experience the remaster, which I think adds another layer of I don't know, differentness to it. So you can justify playing through the game again because you're having a slightly different experience. And there's additional content. There's more voice acting. The combat is improved. The fishing minigame is fixed. The OST is improved, despite what Chris says. There are some criticisms, but I actually like the remastered soundtrack a bit better. If you've never played the original, the changes in the soundtrack aren't really going to matter to you because you have nothing to compare it to. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Replicant looks better, sounds better, and plays better, and I think everybody should buy it. So go with the remaster over the original if you have the option. It's probably cheaper too. At this point,
nowadays,
yeah, probably.
It's getting close, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so there you heard it. I think we all love this game, and if you couldn't tell throughout the progression of the episode, like that was probably the least shocking part of the episode. That's just probably not very shocking. So once again, thank you so much, Adam, for stopping by and joining us today. So how about you let everyone know where they can find you?
Cool. Well, thanks for having me on the Mainline Show. If you want to find me, you can find me at The Good, The Bad, and The Backlog, which is my show. I'm on Twitter at Bad Backlog, but I don't post very often because I'm an adult with a full-time job. We're on Instagram at Good Bad Backlog. And other than that, you can just find me in the Discord for you guys. So yeah, check us out.
Awesome.
All
right. Well, as for us, I actually, you know what? I think particularly longtime listeners are going to appreciate this. I have found a way to consolidate all of our plugs into one thing. Just
is it
one.
Linktree?
You spoiled it, Adam. God damn it.
God damn it, Adam.
Yes, it's a fucking Linktree. No. So yeah. No. So rather than giving you all of these different links to go to, you can go and navigate to them yourself. And I also save you probably a good 3 to 5 minutes at the tail end of each one of these episodes. So if you want to go check out everything we have to offer, whether it is the public Discord, our Patreon, the merch shop, our socials, whatever, just go over to Linktree. That's linktr.ee/rollercoaster. Retro Hangover, and you will have this fancy little menu with a bunch of buttons that will take you wherever you want to go.
Sweet. Also, part of that link tree is you can find us on Twitch. What time will you find us on Twitch? It'll be 9 p.m. Eastern time. That's U.S. time, because today we're having someone not in the U.S. Thank you. And we play games on there that you might be interested in watching. Sometimes they're related to the episode. Sometimes they're not. And remember, 9 p.m. Eastern time-ish, because OBS makes demands that are unreasonable sometimes. You can find us on twitch.tv/retrohangover. You can find it in the link tree.
All right. Well, with all of that being said, until next time.
Play with your Papa or Young NieR joysticks.
Bye.
Shane here with a quick message. You know, the one rule Chris and I have always gone by regarding advertisements is this. It has to be something we use and can personally vouch for. If you know me, you know I love coffee. And Bones Coffee Company has been my go-to for home brewing for quite some time now. Their small batch beans come in an impressive variety of flavors like Mint Invaders from Chocolate Space, or Electric Unicorn, which I swear tastes exactly like Fruity Pebbles. And the best part? No added sugar or calories involved, just natural flavors infused right into the beans themselves. Build your own sample pack of 5 4-ounce bags to find out which flavors speak to you, or jump in head first with full 12-ounce bags. They've even got K-Cups. Step up your homebrew game with Bones Coffee by visiting bit.ly/RHPBones. That's bit.ly/RHPBONES. Why'd you have to throw the young in there? All right. I'm going to hit stop.
If there's grass on the field.
Stop.